Formal verification can be a powerful tool, but it's essential to know which approach to take and when. So, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to Formal Intelligence. If you have been following our series on formal complexity reduction, you know we have covered a lot of ground. Today, we are diving into the final part, the ninth installment, where we explore some cutting edge techniques for bug hunting in complex designs. Picture this: you are a digital detective tracking down elusive bugs in your design. In our video, we will show you how to become a bug hunting pro. From cryptic glitches to hidden flaws, we have got you covered. The second thing we will talk about today is semi formal verification. It's like the superhero sidekick of formal methods. We will break it down, demystify the jargon, and equip you with the tools to tackle verification challenges.
Let's dive into the details. With this video, we will complete all three categories of complexity reduction techniques in Formal. Please try it out in your designs and let me know which one of these helped you the most. Imagine you're working with a checker that consistently stops at a limit of 41, despite running it for 3 days, let's say. You have exhausted every non method to simplify both the checker and the design. What's next? It's possible to conclude the design is bug free up to a limit of 40. However, can you confidently declare that the design will never fail due to a bug? The answer is no. No existing formal technology can provide a guarantee of being bug free unless the checker itself confirms it and the checker passes. However, there is a strategy that can bolster your confidence: the method of bug hunting. You can ask the tool to start from a bound of 40 in this case, since you know that there are no bugs until 40 from your 3-day run, and check for bounds up to 60. If you run this, you can catch bugs that fall within this blue region, the bound 40 to 60. So in the end, you can say that, hey, I'm sure that there is no bug until a bound of 40, but as an added advantage, you can also say that I also tried to catch bugs from bound 40 to 60 within a reasonable time limit, but I don't guarantee that there are no bugs in 40 to 60 bounds. So, if you need to give any guarantees in 40 to 60 bound range, also, there are some techniques in bug hunt. You can fine tune the bug hunt settings accordingly and ensure that as well. It really depends on the tool that you're working on. So, the bug hunt strategy that we discussed in the last page is just one of the many possible bug hunt strategies. Another interesting one is what we see in this slide. It is to do a bug hunt around an interesting cover trace. For example, a cover trace of depth 80. Let's say you have an interesting cover that is related to the check that is going for a timeout at bound 40, and depth of this cover trace is 80 as I mentioned earlier. Since the bound of your check is not really reaching the bound of your interesting cover, you cannot say that the check has gone to sufficient bounds. Technically, the check should, any check should at least hit a bound of the longest interesting cover trace. Interesting in the sense that the cover is related to the scenario that you're checking in the target check. So this is also called bound analysis, which is commonly used for formal sign off. Now, one way to work around this issue that we are seeing here, which is the check going to 40 and going for a timeout in a very long run, but you also see an interesting cover trace which is much deeper than this bound of 40. So the one way to work around this issue is to obviously use the technique that we saw here. You can say that, hey, start from bound 40, go to bound 80, cover all possible scenarios, and then tell me if you can catch a bug or not. But uh, since we already know the cover trace, you can ask the tool to cover certain bounds around the cover trace. For example, what I'm saying is instead of asking the tool to cover all possible bounds from bound 40 to 80, you can ask the tool to trace a path up to 80. While traveling along the trace, look around for, let's say, bound of 5 for bugs for this check. So 5 is just to say that the check is now searching in the vicinity of the cover trace. This is a really good example of combining formal and simulation because these cover traces, it can be from formal and also it can be from simulation. Let's say you wrote the checker, it goes for timeout, and then DV or the simulation team or the design verification team, traditionally called, comes up with a failure which is covering a scenario of depth 80. Then you can run this check around this trace and see that if your check can still catch the bug, which they caught somewhere from, let's say, 40 to 80 range. Remember, in general, bug hunt, as the name suggests, is a way to hunt for bugs and not to guarantee the absence of bugs, mostly. But it is something worth exploring when all your options have run out. That's about bug hunting. Another interesting concept in formal is the idea of using data from simulation to simulation normal DV traces to formal. One case we already is the one which you already covered in the previous slide, which is doing bug hunt around the trace. But a more more appropriate example would be the case of waypoints, which we will cover in the next slide. Let's take the previous case itself where you have a check which is getting stuck at the bound of 40. Let's say you have been working on the design for a while, let's say a year or 2 years, and you know the interesting scenarios or events that the check has to go through so that it can catch certain bugs. So let's call these scenarios or events as waypoints. You can also call them as guide points or lighthouses, as in lighthouses help act as a guiding star for for ships, or in this case you, in taking you towards a target scenario or your destination where you can hopefully find a bug. What if you could ask the tool to take the searches through these waypoints instead of spending time in tracing all possible paths out of reset? It could save a lot of the search time that the tools are using. Luckily, there is an option to do that in some of the FV tools. For the check in our hand, let's say there is a waypoint at bound 20. I'm calling it WP1. First the check will go out of reset to the waypoint 1. So its whole aim is to reach waypoint 1. So it's ignoring all the paths to reach waypoint 1. Then let's say there is another waypoint that you're providing based on your design knowledge again. Then the check will go from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2. Now you reached or hopefully reached bound 40 faster than the case where you'd have searched all possible paths out of reset, all directions of the circle, for example. Now it will go from waypoint 2 and then hopefully reach a deeper bound, let's say bound 60, where you can catch a bug. This would never have been caught if you were just running the check like this. Sorry, like this. You're searching for all possible directions. You will end up at bound 40 and you will get stuck. In a nutshell, the concept of waypoints looks like this. Out of reset, go to waypoint at a particular bound. From that waypoint, another waypoint. Then from there, try to look for maybe all possible directions if there are any more waypoints. Then hopefully find a bug faster. So how do these waypoints look like? So in reality, um, the waypoints looks like this. Let's consider a case where we have two blocks. Let's call it block 1 and block 2. Block 1 is a simple counter, and block 2 is, let's say, an FSM or another block which is using the value of counter to transition to a particular state, for example. And then when it transitions to a particular state, a check will get activated and a particular check will be checking a functionality of block 2. Now, as a designer, you know that you have set the count value, interesting count value of 1023. So when the counter out of reset, it becomes 0 and then eventually counts 1023. Until then, nothing interesting is happening in block 2 as far as the check is concerned. So you can say that, hey, let me give you a waypoint, the value of counter getting equal to 1023. So go there first and then from there try to check for bugs. It's a very simple example. Maybe it's not even useful in this particular case. But then there are certain cases where FIFO becoming full or a cache becoming full or a counter overflowing or a FIFO overflowing, if it's allowed. Things like that, which can only be found using your design knowledge based on your experience, years of experience in design, can actually be fed into these formal tools so that it can work wonders for you and find really deep bugs. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot for watching again. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay updated. Hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our content. Stay tuned for our next video where we will dive into another intriguing formal verification topic. Until next time, keep verifying, keep designing, and stay curious. See you in the next video.